Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we're going to talk about the future of American foreign policy messaging because there have been some interesting developments, and some of them are going to be very humorous. It appears that the strategy behind the messaging that is going to go out with our near peer contests has been decided. And we got a sneak peek of it with Biden's his conference about embracing a resurgence of democracy. And we have to appeal to those authoritarian countries and get them to embrace democracy again, right? And that sounds good. It sounds like that would be a good purpose for a conference. The thing is, none of the authoritarian nations were invited. That's not what it was about. It was about dividing the world up between the countries that are loosely aligned with the United States, whether they're in favor of democracy or they're authoritarian. Doesn't matter. They were invited. Those countries that are more closely aligned with China and Russia, well, they weren't. This is the framing that's going to go out. Cold War 2.0 is going to be democracy versus authoritarianism, the same way the first Cold War was defined by capitalism versus communism, or it was framed as democracy versus communism. Good. That's great framing, not because I really think the United States should be entering into another long string of near-peer contests, but because this messaging is going to be used to motivate the American people the same way there was messaging, and by messaging I mean propaganda, just to be clear, the same way messaging during the Cold War became very, very against leftism. The new near-peer contest is going to be very, very against authoritarianism. And if there's going to be one tangible good thing that comes out of it, it's going to be this. Because you will see the media and politicians begin to embrace anti-authoritarian talking points and use them to motivate the American people in this new Cold War. It will end up, assuming their plan works, it will end up meaning that to be an American patriot, you have to be against authoritarianism, which is fantastic. That should be true. Now, there's a whole bunch of actual anti-authoritarians in the United States right now that are laughing in an incredibly cynical manner. And yeah, a lot of this is really hypocritical. The United States has a long history of authoritarianism, but that's not going to be the messaging. We're not talking about realities. We're talking about what is going to be pushed out as the framing device for this near-peer contest. And that certainly appears to be what they have decided on. And I mean, if you're going to have framing, this is good. This is good. I like this. Now, another humorous development that is going to come from this is you'll be able to watch and figure out who the real authoritarians in the United States are. The people who push back against this messaging. If I had to guess, Tucker Carlson, Newsmax, maybe Hannity, people like that, they're going to push back really hard because they want authoritarianism. They will do anything to make sure that this messaging doesn't take hold. So you'll start to see them more closely align themselves with the Putins of the world. In fact, you've already started to see that. They're trying to paint him as some kind of benevolent dictator or something. And that'll go on until there's a tipping point. You know, we can look to the first Cold War to see how this is going to play out. You know, a lot of times history determines the future. There's a link, so to speak. And just like during the first Cold War, it suddenly became unacceptable to have leftist ideas in the United States. It will become unacceptable to have authoritarian ideas in the United States. So those people who are in favor of an authoritarian system, an even more authoritarian system in the United States, they're going to do everything they can to stop this messaging from taking hold. It's not because they don't want the contest. It's not because they don't want this near-peer confrontation. They've been ranting China, China, China for years, right? That they've been egging it on. They've been talking about how, their military is doing this and ours isn't masculine enough and whatever. They've been pushing it. But now that they're going to see the framing, it's changing. They're not going to want it anymore because it will undermine their own beliefs, their own messaging. I can only hope that this framing takes hold. Now, one of the things you should really understand is that it's not really what's happening out there. It's not really going to be democracy versus authoritarianism. That's the gift wrapping for this little contest. It's not really what's inside of it. If you look at the list of countries that were invited to the Love Democracy Fest that Biden held, there were a lot of countries that aren't exactly free that were invited, but they aligned more closely with the U.S. So while the messaging is good, it's going to be against authoritarianism. Just always bear in mind that it's just that. It's messaging. It's messaging. It's not really what's behind the contest. What's behind the contest is the same thing that is behind everything in foreign policy: power and nothing else. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.